The space around Kepler 442 looked empty and cold when the cargo ship Liberty's Edge came out of hyperspace. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the stars through the big window. He had been flying cargo ships for 20 years and something felt wrong here. The radio was too quiet. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen many worlds and carried all kinds of cargo across the galaxy. Today his ship carried medical supplies for the colony on New Haven. People there were sick and dying from a bad disease. The medicine in his cargo hold could save thousands of lives. Lisa Parker sat at her station watching the ship's computers. She was the chief engineer and had been working with Jake for 5 years. Her brown hair was tied back and her hands moved quickly over the controls. She knew every sound the ship made, and right now something was making her nervous. The Liberty's Edge was not a pretty ship. It was big and gray with dents and scratches from years of hard work. The ship was built to carry cargo, not to fight wars. It had some small guns for protection against pirates, but nothing that could fight real warships. Lisa looked up from her screen with worry in her eyes. "Captain, I am seeing strange energy readings from the asteroid field," she said. "There are ships hiding out there." Jake felt his stomach drop. Pirates usually worked alone or in small groups. If there were multiple ships hiding in the asteroids, this was something much worse. He had heard stories about alien warships attacking human cargo vessels lately. Before Jake could give any orders, the space around them suddenly filled with light. 6 sleek ships appeared from nowhere. They had been using cloaking devices to hide. The ships were beautiful and deadly, with smooth curves and crystal-like hulls that seemed to glow with their own light. Ben Carter at the weapons station turned pale. "Those are Zephyrian warships, Captain," he said. His voice was shaking a little. Ben was young and had only been on 3 cargo runs before this one. He had never seen alien warships up close. The Zephyrians were one of the most advanced races in the galaxy. Their technology was far ahead of human ships. They made weapons and shields that could destroy human vessels easily. Most humans had never seen a Zephyrian ship and lived to tell about it. Amy Collins at the navigation station was trying to plot an escape route, but the alien ships had surrounded them perfectly. There was no way out. Amy was fresh from the academy with blonde hair and blue eyes. She had dreamed of exploring space, but not like this. The radio crackled to life with a cold voice. "Human vessel, you carry contraband that breaks galactic law. Give up your cargo and prepare to be searched." Jake grabbed the radio with anger building in his chest. He knew what the aliens wanted. The Zephyrians controlled most of the medical technology in the galaxy. They sold medicine at high prices and made huge profits. They did not want humans to develop their own medicine or trade with other races. "This is Captain Morrison of the Liberty's Edge," he said into the radio. "We carry emergency medical supplies for dying colonists. This cargo is protected under humanitarian laws." The alien voice came back even colder than before. "There are no humanitarian laws that apply to contraband technology. You will surrender your cargo or be destroyed." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Lisa was watching her computers and trying to boost their shields. Ben was checking their small weapons, even though everyone knew they would be useless against Zephyrian warships. Amy was still looking for an escape route that did not exist. These people trusted him to keep them safe. The colonists on New Haven trusted him to bring the medicine they needed. Jake had never backed down from a fight in his life, but this was different. This was suicide. The Zephyrian ships moved closer. Jake could see their weapons charging up with deadly energy. Each alien ship was 3 times bigger than his cargo vessel and had enough firepower to destroy a small space station. "Captain, they are targeting our engines," Ben said. "If they disable us, we will be stuck here." Jake made his choice. He had carried cargo through pirate attacks and ion storms. He had never failed to deliver what people were counting on. He was not going to start now. "Negative alien ship," Jake said into the radio. "This medicine belongs to sick children who will die without it. We are continuing to New Haven." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Jake could hear his crew breathing and the quiet hum of the ship's engines. He knew he had just signed their death warrant, but some things were worth dying for. The alien voice came back one final time. "Then you will all die." The first blast hit them before Jake could give any orders. The ship shook like it was coming apart. Lights flickered and alarms started ringing. Lisa's station exploded in sparks and she fell backwards in her chair. More energy beams hit the Liberty's Edge from all sides. The Zephyrians were not trying to disable the ship anymore. They were trying to destroy it completely. Jake held onto his captain's chair as another explosion rocked the bridge. "Shields are failing," Ben shouted over the noise. "Hull damage on multiple decks." Jake watched his ship dying around him. The medical supplies in the cargo hold seemed so close, but they might as well have been on the other side of the galaxy. The Zephyrians had all the advantages. Better ships, better weapons, better shields. But Jake Morrison had something they did not understand. He had the stubborn refusal to give up that had kept humans alive through 1,000 impossible situations. As another blast shook his ship, Jake started to smile. The aliens thought this fight was over. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The second wave of plasma fire from the Zephyrian ships hit the Liberty's edge like hammers from hell. Jake felt the deck plates buckle under his feet as explosions tore through the ship. Smoke filled the bridge and sparks flew from every control panel. Lisa pulled herself up from the floor with blood running down her face. Her engineering station was completely destroyed, but she moved to a backup console. Her fingers danced over the controls trying to keep the ship from falling apart completely. "Main power is gone," she shouted over the alarms. "I am switching to backup generators, but they will not last long." Ben Carter was thrown against the wall when another blast hit near the weapons bay. He crawled back to his station and tried to return fire with their small defensive guns. The mining lasers and point defense systems were never meant to fight real warships, but he had to try something. "Our weapons are not even scratching their shields," Ben said with frustration in his voice. "It is like throwing rocks at a tank." Amy Collins was fighting to keep the ship stable as more hits rocked them. The navigation system kept cutting out and coming back online. She could see the Zephyrian ships moving around them in perfect formation like sharks circling wounded prey. Jake held onto his chair and watched his ship die piece by piece. Every hit from the alien weapons took out more systems. The lights flickered and went out, then came back dim and red. The artificial gravity was failing, making everyone feel sick and dizzy. Another massive blast hit the cargo bay and Jake felt his heart sink. If the medical supplies were destroyed, then people on New Haven would die no matter what happened here. Children would suffer because he could not protect a simple cargo run. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Lisa called out. "Emergency bulkheads are sealing, but we lost the forward crew quarters." The emergency lights cast everything in an evil red glow. Jake could hear the ship groaning and creaking as the hull took more damage. The Liberty's Edge was a tough old ship, but she was not built for this kind of punishment. Ben's weapons console exploded in a shower of sparks and he was thrown backwards. "All weapons are offline, Captain," he said while wiping blood from his eyes. "We are defenseless." The Zephyrian ship stopped firing for a moment. Jake knew they were getting ready to board his ship and take the cargo. In a few minutes, alien soldiers would be walking through his corridors taking the medicine that sick children needed to live. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "I am picking up a transmission from the lead alien ship." The cold voice came through the static-filled speakers. "Human captain, your ship is defeated. Prepare to be boarded. Your crew will not be harmed if you cooperate." Jake looked around his ruined bridge. Everything was broken or on fire. His crew was hurt and scared. Any reasonable person would surrender now and hope the aliens kept their word about not harming the crew. But Jake was thinking about something else. He was thinking about a little girl on New Haven who was fighting a disease that would kill her without the medicine in his cargo hold. He was thinking about the families who had trusted him to bring help to their world. "Lisa," he said, "how much power do we have left in the engines?" Lisa looked at him like he had lost his mind. "The engines are still working, but Captain, what are you thinking?" "I am thinking about physics," Jake said with a grim smile. "Newton's laws work the same everywhere in the galaxy." Ben stared at his captain. "Sir, you cannot be serious. Even if we ram them, their shields will stop us and we will be destroyed for nothing." Jake studied the tactical display showing the positions of the Zephyrian ships. They were arranged in a perfect formation that showed how confident they were. Their shields were strong enough to stop any weapon the humans had, but shields were designed to stop energy beams, not solid objects moving at high speed. "Amy, plot a course straight for the lead ship," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." Amy's hands shook as she entered the navigation commands. "Captain, a collision course will kill us all." "Maybe," Jake said, "but it will also take out their flagship. And maybe that will give other ships a chance to get through with medical supplies." Lisa was already rerouting power from every system she could think of. Life support, gravity, artificial atmosphere. Everything went to the engines. The ship started to vibrate as the big cargo engines built up power. "All hands, this is the captain. Jake said over the ship-wide comm system. "We are going to ram the lead alien ship. Anyone who wants to evacuate to escape pods has 1 minute." Nobody moved from their stations. Lisa kept working on the engines. Ben tried to get the sensors working so they could target the enemy ship better. Amy refined their attack course. Jake felt proud of his crew but also sad. These people were about to die because he was too stubborn to surrender. But sometimes being stubborn was the only way to do what was right. The engines roared to life with more power than they had ever produced. The Liberty's Edge was designed to haul heavy cargo across interstellar distances. Her engines were built for long, reliable service, not for maximum power, but Lisa was pushing them far beyond safe limits. "Engine temperature is redlining," Lisa warned. "If we keep this up, the whole engine room will explode." "How long can you give me?" Jake asked. 5 minutes, maybe 6 before everything melts down. Then we better make this count. The Liberty's Edge started moving forward slowly at first, then faster and faster. The Zephyrian ship seemed surprised by the sudden movement. Jake could imagine the alien commander trying to figure out what the crazy humans were doing. The radio crackled with the alien voice again. "Human ship, what are you doing? Stop your engines immediately." Jake grabbed the radio and smiled. "We are delivering your message." "What message?" "The message that says humans do not give up." The cargo ship was picking up speed now. The hull started to glow from the stress of acceleration. Warning alarms rang throughout the ship as every system strained beyond its limits. The Zephyrian ships began to move, trying to get out of the way, but their elegant formation worked against them. They had positioned themselves to show their superiority, not to run away from a crazy cargo ship. Jake watched the distance close between his ship and the alien flagship. 3,000 meters, 2,000, 1,000. The Zephyrians were firing everything they had, but at this close range their plasma cannons could not stop the massive cargo vessel. "Impact in 10 seconds, Amy announced. Jake closed his eyes and thought about the children on New Haven. "This one is for you kids." Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human cargo ship with growing confusion. The vessel was accelerating directly toward his position, which made no tactical sense. Humans were known for their emotional responses, but this was beyond irrational behavior. The Zephyrian commander was tall and elegant, like all of his race. His crystalline skin reflected the light from his ship's controls, and his large black eyes showed no emotion. He had destroyed dozens of human ships over the years, and they all followed the same pattern: fight briefly, then surrender when they realized how outmatched they were. "Commander, the human vessel is not changing course," reported his tactical officer. "They appear to be attempting a ramming attack." Vextar's head tilted slightly, which was the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. "Impossible. Their crude ship would be destroyed by our shields long before impact. They must be attempting some primitive deception." The other Zephyrian ships in the formation were also watching the Liberty's Edge with interest. The human vessel was glowing now from the heat of its engines running at maximum power. Plasma trails streamed behind it as it pushed far beyond safe operating limits. "Sir," the communications officer said, "the human captain is transmitting again." Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. His uniform was torn and blood ran down his cheek, but his eyes were steady and determined. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was a wreck of sparking consoles and emergency lighting. "Zephyrian commander," Jake said in a calm voice, "I want to make you an offer." Vextar studied the human with curious detachment. Even facing certain death, this primitive creature showed no fear. It was almost admirable in a crude, organic way. "You are in no position to negotiate, human. Your ship is dying and your weapons are useless against our technology." Jake smiled, and Vextar found the expression disturbing. Humans showed their teeth when they were pleased, which seemed savage and threatening to civilized races. "Here is my offer," Jake continued. "Get out of our way or we will go through you." The bridge of the Zephyrian flagship fell silent. Even the usually emotionless crew seemed shocked by the human's words. Vextar's translator unit struggled to process what it had heard. "Explain your meaning, human. You cannot possibly threaten vessels of the Zephyrian fleet. My engineer tells me our engines still work fine, and last time I checked, physics works the same way everywhere in the galaxy. Mass times velocity equals momentum, and your pretty shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid objects." Vextar felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. The human ship was indeed massive, Cargo vessels were built with reinforced hulls to handle the stress of hyperspace jumps, while fully loaded. If it struck his flagship at high speed, even their advanced shields might not be enough to stop it completely. But that would mean the humans would die too. No rational species would sacrifice themselves for a cargo load. It went against every principle of intelligent behavior that the Zephyrians understood. You would destroy your own ship and crew for medicine, Vextar asked. This makes no sense. It makes perfect sense to us, Jake replied. Those supplies will save thousands of lives on New Haven. My crew of 12 people against thousands of colonists is simple math. On the Liberty's edge, Ben Carter was working frantically to get their targeting sensors back online. If they were going to ram the alien ship, they needed to hit it in exactly the right place. The Zephyrian vessels had weak points where their shield generators were located. I have partial sensors back, Ben announced. The lead ship's primary shield generator is located on the dorsal hull section just behind the bridge. Lisa was pushing the engines beyond anything they were designed to handle. The engine room was becoming so hot that the metal walls were starting to glow. Emergency cooling systems had failed, and she was using pure willpower to keep the massive reactors from exploding. Engine core temperature is approaching critical, she shouted over the roar of the overloaded systems. We have maybe 2 minutes before everything melts down. Amy had plotted their intercept course with mathematical precision. The Liberty's edge would hit the alien flagship at exactly the right angle to penetrate their shields and strike the vulnerable generator array. Of course, the collision would destroy both ships completely. 1 minute 30 seconds to impact, Amy called out. On the Zephyrian flagship, Commander Vextar was finally beginning to understand what he was facing. These humans were not bluffing or posturing. They really intended to ram his ship even though it meant their own destruction. All ships evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Get us away from the human vessel. But the Zephyrian formation was designed for elegant long-range combat, not desperate close-quarters maneuvering. The ships were too close together and their movements were too coordinated. They could not scatter quickly enough to avoid the incoming cargo vessel. Commander, we cannot clear the impact zone in time, his navigation officer reported. The human ship will strike us in 90 seconds. Vextar watched the approaching vessel with something approaching respect. The Liberty's edge was ugly and crude compared to Zephyrian ships. It was dented and scarred from years of hard service, but it kept coming with the relentless determination of a natural force. All weapons target the human ship, Vextar commanded. Destroy it before impact. The 6 Zephyrian warships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes all struck the Liberty's edge simultaneously. Huge chunks of the cargo ship's hull were torn away, and secondary explosions lit up the darkness of space. But the massive vessel continued its charge. The cargo holds were built to survive hyperspace transitions, and they absorbed incredible amounts of damage while protecting the engine sections. The Liberty's edge looked like it was coming apart, but it kept accelerating toward the Zephyrian flagship. 60 seconds to impact, Amy announced. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking as she made final course corrections. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system one last time. All hands, this is the captain. It has been an honor serving with you. Emergency stations for collision. The crew of the Liberty's edge strapped themselves into their emergency seats and waited for the end. They had done everything possible to ensure the collision would destroy the alien flagship. If they succeeded, other ships might be able to get through with medical supplies for New Haven. 30 seconds. Amy said. On the Zephyrian flagship, Vextar realized that his elegant shields and advanced weapons were about to be defeated by simple physics and human stubbornness. The cargo ship was going to hit them, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. All hands brace for impact, he ordered. The 2 ships rushed toward each other through the darkness of space. One was sleek and beautiful, representing the height of galactic civilization. The other was scarred and ugly, carrying nothing but medicine for sick children. In 10 seconds, they would find out which was stronger. The collision between the Liberty's edge and the Zephyrian flagship lit up space like a small star being born. The cargo ship's reinforced bow struck the alien vessel's shields with the force of a meteor impact. For a moment that seemed to last forever. The 2 ships hung together in space, locked in a deadly embrace. Commander, Vextar felt his flagship shudder as the human ship's momentum drove it through the shield barrier. The elegant crystalline hull of his vessel began to crack under the enormous pressure. Alarms screamed throughout the Zephyrian ship as systems failed one after another. Hull breach in the forward sections, his damage control officer reported. The human ship has penetrated our primary shields. The Liberty's edge was coming apart as it pushed deeper into the alien flagship. Huge pieces of cargo hull were torn away by the collision, but the ship's massive engine section kept driving forward. Lisa had built those engines to last and even facing destruction. They continued to push with relentless power. On the bridge of the Liberty's edge, Jake held onto his command chair as everything around him disintegrated. The forward sections of his ship were gone, but the cargo holds and engine room were still intact. The medical supplies were protected in the center of the ship where they had the best chance of surviving. "Captain," Amy shouted over the noise of tearing metal, "our forward hull is completely destroyed, but the cargo sections are holding." Ben Carter was thrown across the bridge when another piece of the ship broke away. He pulled himself up and checked his instruments with blood running from a cut on his head. "The alien ship's shields are down. We punched right through them." The Zephyrian flagship was dying as surely as the human cargo vessel. The collision had destroyed the shield generators and cracked the main hull in dozens of places. Emergency force fields were failing and atmosphere was venting into space. But something incredible was happening. The Liberty's edge was not just destroying the alien ship. It was continuing to move forward, pushing deeper into the Zephyrian vessel's hull. The cargo ship's engines were still running and still producing thrust. "Impossible," Vextar whispered as he watched his beautiful flagship being torn apart by the ugly human vessel. No ship could survive this level of damage and continue functioning. The other Zephyrian ships in the formation were caught completely by surprise. They had expected the collision to destroy both vessels instantly. Instead, they watched in horror as the human cargo ship drove deeper and deeper into their flagship's hull, like a guided missile that refused to stop. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel," Vextar ordered even as his own ship shook apart around him. "Destroy it before it reaches our reactor core." The 5 remaining Zephyrian warships opened fire on the wreckage of the 2 colliding vessels. Their plasma cannons lit up space with deadly energy, but they had to be careful not to hit their own flagship. The human ship was so deep inside the Zephyrian vessel that targeting it meant risking friendly fire. Inside the Liberty's edge, Lisa was performing miracles in the engine room. Half of her equipment was destroyed, and the other half was on fire, but she kept the massive reactors running. The ship's artificial gravity had failed, and she was floating in 0G while working on control panels that sparked and smoked around her. "Engine core temperature is beyond critical," she called to the bridge. "I cannot keep this up much longer." Jake looked at the tactical display showing their position inside the alien ship. They were close to something important. The Zephyrian vessel's power readings were fluctuating wildly, which meant they were near the enemy's main reactor or computer core. "Lisa, give me 30 more seconds of thrust," he said. "Just 30 seconds." The chief engineer pushed buttons and turned valves that were never meant to be operated under these conditions. The Liberty's Edge's engines roared with power that should have destroyed them instantly. But human engineering was built for abuse, and the big cargo hauler kept moving forward. The nose of the Liberty's Edge finally punched through into the Zephyrian flagship's central reactor chamber. The alien reactor was a thing of beauty with flowing energy patterns and crystalline control structures, but it was not designed to have a human cargo ship crash into it at high speed. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The alien reactor began to overload as its delicate control systems were smashed by chunks of human ship hull. Energy patterns that had been stable for decades suddenly became chaotic and dangerous. "Reactor overload," the Zephyrian damage control officer screamed. All hands abandoned ship, but it was too late for most of the crew. The alien flagship exploded in a ball of plasma and exotic energy that lit up the entire star system. The beautiful crystalline hull that had taken years to grow was vaporized in seconds. Commander Vextar and most of his crew died instantly. The explosion caught the 2 nearest Zephyrian ships in its blast radius. Their elegant hulls were not designed to withstand the massive energy release from their flagship's death. One ship lost all power and began drifting helplessly. The other suffered critical damage to its weapon systems and life support. The remaining 3 Zephyrian vessels the crews watched in shock as their most advanced ship was destroyed by a primitive human cargo hauler. The flagship had been the pride of their fleet with technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. "Sub-Commander," Kailara took command of the surviving ships from her position on the second vessel. She was younger than Vextar, and had always thought humans were simply another inferior species. Now she was learning how wrong that assumption could be. "Status report," she demanded as her communications officer tried to contact the damaged ships. "The flagship is completely destroyed," came the reply. "The second and third ships are heavily damaged and unable to fight. We have 3 ships remaining in fighting condition." Kailara studied the debris field where 2 ships had died together. The human cargo vessel was gone too, but its sacrifice had accomplished something that should have been impossible. A single unarmed freighter had destroyed the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian fleet. "Sub-Commander," her tactical officer reported, "I am detecting escape pods from the human vessel. Some of their crew survived the collision." This was another surprise. Kailara had expected all the humans to die in the ramming attack. The fact that some had survived meant they had planned for this possibility. They had known they would probably die, but had prepared for their crew to live if possible. The radio crackled with a new transmission on the emergency frequency. It was not coming from the escape pods, but from somewhere else in the system, a human voice with a tone that was cold as interstellar space. "Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Danny Rodriguez of the UES Defiant. You have attacked a humanitarian mission in violation of multiple galactic treaties. Stand down immediately and prepare to be taken into custody." Kailara felt her heart sink as new contacts appeared on her sensors. Human warships were dropping out of hyperspace all around the system. Destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels surrounded the remaining Zephyrian ships. The cargo ship's distress signal had brought a rescue fleet. But more than that, the sacrifice of the Liberty's Edge had bought time for the rescue ships to arrive. The human captain had known that his ramming attack would delay the Zephyrian fleet long enough for help to come. He had planned it all from the beginning. As Kailara looked at the overwhelming force of human warships, she realized that the cargo ship captain had taught her something important about human nature. They did not give up even when facing impossible odds. They would die before they let innocent people suffer. That was a lesson the Zephyrians would not forget. Captain Danny Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant and watched the debris field where 2 ships had died together. His jaw was tight with anger as he studied the sensor readings. The Liberty's Edge had been completely destroyed, but her sacrifice had saved the entire mission. Danny had known Jake Morrison for 15 years. They had served together in the Merchant Marine before Danny joined the military. Jake was stubborn and tough and never backed down from a fight when people were counting on him. It was exactly like him to ram an alien warship rather than let sick children die. "Captain," his tactical officer reported, "we have recovered 7 escape pods from the Liberty's Edge. Captain Morrison and most of his crew survived." Danny felt relief wash over him. Jake was alive, which meant the crazy bastard had somehow planned for his crew to survive the collision. The escape pods must have been launched just before impact when the cargo ship was deep inside the alien flagship's hull. "Get those pods aboard immediately," Danny ordered, "and scan the debris field for the medical supplies." The Defiant was a heavy cruiser with enough firepower to destroy all the remaining Zephyrian ships. Behind her came a full battle group of human warships. Destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels filled the space around Kepler 442, with the largest fleet Earth had sent into alien territory in decades. "Sub-Commander," Kailara watched the human ships with growing dread. Her 3 remaining vessels were outnumbered 5-1 and completely surrounded. The elegant Zephyrian warships that had seemed so superior an hour ago now looked small and helpless. "Sub-Commander," her communications officer said, "The human fleet commander is requesting immediate surrender." Kailara studied the tactical situation. Her flagship was destroyed along with Commander Vextar and most of the fleet's senior officers. 2 more ships were heavily damaged and drifting. Her 3 remaining vessels could not hope to fight their way out against so many human warships. But more important than the military situation was what she had learned about human nature. The cargo ship captain had been willing to die to protect medical supplies for sick children. If humans would sacrifice themselves for strangers, how hard would they fight to protect their own people? "Open a channel to the human fleet," she ordered. Captain Rodriguez appeared on her main screen. He was a stocky man with graying hair and hard eyes. His uniform was crisp and military, but his expression showed barely controlled fury. "Zephyrian Commander," he said, "you attacked an unarmed medical transport in violation of galactic law. Surrender immediately or face the consequences. Kylara had never surrendered to an inferior species before. The Zephyrians had always been the dominant military power in this sector, but the debris field where her flagship had died was proof that superior technology meant nothing without the will to use it properly. "Human captain," she replied, "we withdraw from this system. The Zephyrian fleet acknowledges the courage of your cargo ship crew." It was as close to an apology as any Zephyrian had ever given to a human. Danny Rodriguez studied her face and saw something he had not expected. Respect. "Your withdrawal is accepted," Danny said. "But if Zephyrian ships ever attack human medical transports again, the response will be much more severe." The 3 surviving alien warships began moving away from the battle site. Their elegant hulls were scarred and damaged, but they were alive to tell the story of what had happened here. The galaxy would learn that humans did not surrender when fighting for what they believed was right. As the Zephyrian ships disappeared into hyperspace, recovery vessels from the human fleet began collecting debris and escape pods. The medical supplies from the Liberty's Edge were scattered across a wide area, but most of the cargo containers had survived the collision. Jake Morrison was brought aboard the Defiant with his surviving crew members. His left arm was broken and his uniform was torn, but he was grinning like a man who had just won the lottery. "Danny, you magnificent son of a gun," Jake said as he was helped onto the bridge. "I knew you would get here in time." Captain Rodriguez shook his old friend's hand carefully because of the broken arm. "You crazy fool, you could have gotten your whole crew killed with that stunt." "But we didn't," Jake replied. "And the medicine will reach New Haven." Danny looked at the tactical display showing the recovered cargo containers. Most of the medical supplies had survived because they were stored in the most protected part of the cargo ship. The reinforced holds that had allowed the Liberty's Edge to punch through alien shields had also kept the medicine safe. "The colonists will get their supplies," Danny confirmed, "and the galaxy will get a lesson about what happens when you threaten human civilians." Over the next few hours, the human fleet collected all the debris and survivors from the battle. The Zephyrian ships that had been damaged were given emergency repairs and allowed to leave the system. The human fleet wanted to send a message, but they were not interested in starting a galactic war. Lisa Parker was treated for burns she had received while keeping the engines running during the ramming attack. Ben Carter had a concussion from being thrown around the bridge but would recover completely. Amy Collins was uninjured but shaken by her first real combat experience. The story of the Liberty's Edge spread through human space faster than the ships that carried the news. Every cargo captain and merchant sailor heard about Jake Morrison and his crew. They learned that when human shields failed and human cannons jammed, a human ship did not stop coming. 6 months later, Jake Morrison was back in space commanding a new cargo vessel. The ship was called Liberty's Hope, and she carried medical supplies to colonies throughout the galaxy. No alien warship ever tried to stop her. The Zephyrians learned to respect human determination because they had seen what happened when you tried to stop a human ship that just kept coming. Other alien races heard the story too, and began to understand that humans were different from any species they had encountered before. When humans fought for their principles, they did not calculate odds or measure firepower. They simply refused to give up no matter what the cost. It was a lesson that changed how the entire galaxy viewed the stubborn species from Earth. Years later, when diplomats met to discuss galactic law, they always remembered the Liberty's Edge. The ship that proved that sometimes the only weapon you need is the absolute refusal to accept defeat when fighting for what is right. The medical supplies reached New Haven colony and thousands of lives were saved. Children who would have died from disease grew up healthy and strong. They learned the story of the cargo ship that sacrificed everything to bring them medicine. And when those children became adults and faced their own impossible challenges, they remembered Captain Jake Morrison and his crew. They remembered that humans do not surrender when innocent lives are at stake. The galaxy learned to respect that determination because it had seen the price humans were willing to pay for their principles. In the end, that respect was worth more than any weapon or shield technology. The Liberty's Edge was gone, but her legacy lived on in every human ship that carried hope across the stars.